oversight is vital. I mean, I think it's a democratic need. I mean, I think we are part of a process. We're independent auditors, so we're basically an independent function, which acts as a sort of a check and balance on the spending of the EU funds, which is carried out either directly by the European Commission or by the European Commission in conjunction with the member states. So basically what we're there to do, I think, is to try and to give an independent view as to how this is functioning or not. And I think that's how we sort of encourage financial oversight. And our objective in the end is to ensure, transparency and accountability. I think that's really what we're looking for, because at the end of the day, EU taxpayers' money is what actually funds the EU budget, and we should never forget that. Well, I think we have recommendations, but we also have messages in our report sometimes which can be equally as effective as a specific recommendation. For instance, with the new Recovery and Resilience Facility, we had issues about the transparency requirements, because compared to the normal budget, for instance, in cohesion, where basically every beneficiary in every member state is you can see who's getting the money basically on the websites of the Commission. For the RRF, initially there was no transparency, there was no requirement to basically publish who the actual beneficiaries were, and ultimately now they have at least moved in one direction, where now we have 100, the top 100 at least are being published, so there is increased transparency. So I think that was a message that we consistently were promoting, that there needed to be more transparency, and that's I think a positive outcome. It's not perfect, let's say, but it's better than the case was when we started. The future of Europe is very is very creaky, if you want, at the moment. There's a lot of pressures on it. I think we have a lot of disinformation campaigns which are sort of anti-European sentiment. We have a lot of challenges in the EU in terms of funding requirements for an awful lot of new priorities, whether it's the Ukraine, whether it's enlargement, whether it's security and defence. So it's really a challenging time for the EU, and I think academic institutions like yourselves here can be can communicate messages. I mean, I think inform people. I mean, I think people need to be, informed of the real value of the EU. I think there's a communication gap sometimes between, say, the European Commission and the European institutions generally, and the taxpayer, as to what actually, are the advantages of being in the EU. It's not just. People can sometimes look at it as a mathematical transaction. We pay in so much and we get so much back. But there are so many more things, like whether it's free movement of Schengen, free movement of goods, consumer rights. I mean, sort of food quality, things like that. And just a very simple practical example, which we actually came across a couple of weeks ago ourselves. We were in London and I hadn't been there for a while, and all of a sudden, we find that we have no roaming anymore for mobile data. So something simple, I mean, that we take for granted. And I think the academic institutes like yourselves have a I would say a role in promoting what the EU is about, basically informing the community, if you like. And I would also hope, given the sort of the career progression, that many of you will end up in the EU institutions and have a positive impact there. So I think this college like this is basically informing you and shaping you, and hopefully that will be transferred to actual roles in the European institutions.